I started doing a PhD at the University of Tasmania in 2010. I have a background in marine science, and prior to commencing my PhD, I worked at the Australian Fisheries Management Authority for 3 years, working in different fisheries such as the Torres Strait rock lobster, eastern tuna and billfish fishery. I'd been searching for PhDs for a while, but I wanted one that merged fisheries science and fisheries management. My project was looking at changing fishing practices and behaviour of fishers in the southern rock lobster fishery under individual transferable quota management, which is ITQs. IGQs are a form of output control management. So there's two types of management systems: input controls, which manage what you put into the water, like your type of gear, number of hooks, length of net you can use, and then there's output controls, which manage what you take out of the water, so essentially your catch. So they limit the catch by implementing what's called a total allowable commercial catch, and then under an ITQ system of management, each fisher gets an individual allocation of quota units, which they can then use and fish throughout the fishing season. Once you implement an ITQ system, the incentive to go out and race to fish and catch as much as you can before someone else is removed, because they have set allocations. So they can go out and fish throughout the fishing season again, however, what best suits them. So it's about trying to reduce their costs. So normally you can improve your economic profitability by matching your inputs or your costs to your actual catch allocation that you have. Understanding how fishers behave and make decisions is really important to determine how best to manage fisheries. And basically you do that to avoid unexpected and undesirable outcomes of fisheries management and policy. And one part of my work was using experimental economics. And experimental economics basically provides a means of examining policy options under laboratory conditions and to compare predicted outcomes with direct outcomes or observed outcomes of human economic behaviour. And to do this, I examined whether or not fishers' sea safety did improve in the fishery by examining the risk tolerance of different types of fishes in Tasmanian rock lobster. I also used experimental economic approach to examine whether or not different types of fishes under individual transferable quota management, or ITQs, could coordinate to reduce some of the remaining externalities, such as production externalities, which cause economic rent dissipation. So we created a simulated fishery game where, kind of like a computer game, where participants, which we got volunteer students from the university to come and participate. I was comparing two different types of fishers, quota owners and lease fishers. So quota owners are the ones that initially allocated quota units under the quota system. But in many fisheries now, there's an increasing number of people who are leasing quota, as the first generation or the quota owners actually retire and prefer to lease out their quota rather than sell it. So the behavioural incentives and decision making and business structures of those types of two different types of fishers may vary. In many fisheries, individual transferable quota fisheries around the world, due to the free transferability of quota units, there's an increasing shift towards people who are actively fishing not actually owning the quota units, and they have different incentives and behaviours to quota owners who actually own the quota units and are no longer fishing. So the incentives or the theoretical advantages of ITQ systems when they were first brought in relate to quota owners and their incentives, but the people who are now actually fishing on the water may not have those same incentives and may not be behaving the same way as what is envisaged. So there's a separation of ownership and control there, and that can lead to costs incurring. And in this case, what we found in the experimental economic approach is that it can be more difficult to actually reduce economic rent dissipation through effort coordination if you've got a whole group of heterogeneous fishers who may have different incentives. Because my project was industry sponsored, I tried to present some of the results to fishers at management advisory committees and in their local newsletter as well, so they were kept informed of the outcomes of the project. My research is is meant to improve the design of individual transferable quota systems, because once they're implemented, they're difficult to change. So by understanding, say, the free transferability of quota units leads to more lease fishers actually fishing on the water rather than quota owners, then maybe management wants to look at some restrictions on the transferability of quota ownership to prevent that happening, such as owner on board provisions where the quota owner actually has to be on board the fishing vessel at particular points in time, to try and reduce those sort of costs incurred by that separation of ownership and control.